Welcome. Tonight, allow yourself to drift through time, past the hum of electric lights, beyond the world of ticking clocks and glowing screens. You're about to journey to a distant, forgotten plain, a place spoken of in hushed tones, layered in myth, yet rooted in history. The ancient city of Sodom. Before the fire fell from the heavens, before it was turned to salt and shadow, Sodom was a real place. A city that rose from arid soil, bustling with life, commerce, conflict, and mystery. But far from the dramatic stories you may have heard, the daily rhythm of Sodom was not one of fire and brimstone, not yet. It was one of dust, suspicion, sharp whispers behind closed doors, and the quiet, grinding weight of a life lived under fear. So tonight, we won't focus on the ending. Not yet. We'll linger in the spaces before the fall. Imagine yourself there, walking narrow alleys under a low sky, the desert heat pressing against you like a damp blanket. You do not speak the language. Your clothes are strange. People notice you. They do not smile. The day is only beginning, but you're already a stranger in a city that has no love for strangers. So settle in. Let your body relax. Let your eyes grow heavy, and together we'll explore a place where, truly, you wouldn't last a day. The morning in Sodom doesn't begin with birdsong. There are no green trees to rustle, no dew-laced meadows to stretch across. Instead, the sun rises hard and fast, as if flung across the sky. Light bounces off white stone walls, and the heat begins immediately. The earth is dry, cracked, and unfriendly underfoot. The city is compact. Its streets are not built for comfort, but for control. Narrow, labyrinthine paths waned between low, flat-roofed buildings. The stones are worn smooth by sandals and the bare feet of animals, but they offer no softness. Dust clings to everything, your face, your clothing, your lungs. You step cautiously through the first alley. The walls are close on either side, close enough to scrape your shoulders if you're not careful. There are no signs, no street names. If you didn't already know where you were going, you'd be lost in minutes. You don't belong here, and the city knows it. Sodom does not trust outsiders. To the people who live here, strangers are trouble, always wanting, always watching, always bringing curses in their wake. You can feel the stares before you see the eyes. Faces appear in small windows. Conversations hush as you pass. The silence is louder than any shout. Even the markets, usually a place of noise and barter, are tense. Stalls are few and tightly packed. The food on display is often dry, sometimes slightly spoiled, not due to neglect, but because storage is a luxury few can afford. There are figs, yes, and dates and barley, but much of it is hoarded or traded under the table. Coin is not the only currency in Sodom. Reputation matters more. Who you know, or who you don't. A look, a rumor, a misunderstood word. That's all it takes to become unwelcome. As you walk further in, you hear low voices echoing from inside the stone homes. You catch only fragments, names you don't recognize, phrases muttered with tension. He came in last night. Why doesn't he leave? Children do not run freely here. They cling to the edges of buildings, peering cautiously around corners, ushered quickly inside by watchful mothers. The city has wealth, but not generosity. The gates are guarded. The wells are shallow. Hospitality, once sacred in this part of the world, is now rationed like water. Visitors are not offered bread. They are offered warnings. But it wasn't always this way. Sodom was once a place of exchange, a hub along desert trade routes where merchants from the east would pass through with incense and woven cloth. There are still traces of that life, tiny mosaics cracked and worn, carvings above door frames where symbols of the moon and stars once marked sacred spaces. Yet over time, the trust that allowed trade to flourish withered. Trade turned to greed. Greed bred suspicion. Suspicion, in turn, birthed cruelty. Some who study ancient cities say that Sodom suffered not from a lack of prosperity, but from too much of it, and too few hands holding it. There are stories, of course. Later texts would speak of crimes, of mobs, of unspeakable acts committed against travelers. These stories are meant to shock, but here, in the city before its fall, what you notice first is not the drama. It's the unease. Even the animals seem nervous. Donkeys tug at their tethers, goats bleat softly and stare. The stray dog that follows you keeps its distance, never quite approaching, yet never turning away. You pass a small shrine carved into the wall, a weathered idol, its features rubbed smooth by time. Offerings sit in a bowl beneath it. Olive pits, a worn bead, a feather. Someone still believes. Someone is still praying for safety. You might wonder where the rulers are. Who governs a place like this? But power in Sodom doesn't wear a crown or sit on a throne. It flows through families, through whispered alliances, through eyes that watch from behind heavy curtains. At noon, the heat becomes unbearable. There are no fountains, no trees, just more dust. You try to rest in a shadowed corner, but you are quickly approached, not by guards, but by ordinary men with hard faces. Their questions are polite on the surface, but only just, "Who are you? Why are you here? Who sent you?" You realize in that moment that this city has no room for strangers. You smile, try to answer calmly, but you can already sense it, the rejection, soft and certain, curling at the edges of their words. You are not welcome here. You never were. And that is the truth of it. Not fire, not sulfur, not pillars of salt. Just this, a city slowly hardening, turning inward, building walls not from stone, but from fear. You rise again and continue walking. You've learned to keep your head down, to move with purpose even if you have none. To vanish before the city makes you vanish for good. As the afternoon stretches, you wonder, how much longer can Sodom endure? Not the judgment from above, but the rot from within? The answer is coming, but not today, and not yet. Let's leave this maze of suspicion now. Let's step away from the walls and into the hills beyond. Because while the city watches itself burn from the inside, one man and his quiet family are preparing to leave. The sun is lower now. Its sharp glare has dulled, turning the white stone of Sodom into a muted ochre, streaked with lengthening shadows. The air remains dry, but it's no longer oppressive. There's a stillness, a kind of breath being held by the world itself. And outside the city's edge, in a modest dwelling near the gates, Lot prepares to leave. He does not know when exactly, but he feels it. The tension, the dread that slithers in between each moment, and the way the birds no longer sing, the way the wind sometimes changes direction for no reason. Lot is not a hero. He is not bold or brave or particularly wise. He is willing to listen, willing to host. And that in a place like Sodom is dangerous. His home is small but sturdy, clay walls, a flat roof where herbs dry in the sun. A small pen for goats, a well-worn threshold, and two daughters who glance nervously at the window whenever someone passes. His wife moves quietly, deliberately. She measures lentils, watches the sky, and listens, always listens. There was a night not long ago when strangers came, two of them, silent, striking, not just visitors, not just travelers, something else. Lot, in keeping with the ancient laws of hospitality, invited them in. He offered bread without asking their purpose. He gave them water, washed their feet. He gave them shelter, and in doing so he crossed an invisible line, because Sodom does not like kindness. That night there was a noise, not thunder, voices, a growing crowd, angry, faceless, pressing against the door. They demanded the strangers. They wanted control, domination, the breaking of the sacred trust between host and guest. Lot tried to reason. His voice cracked in the heat of it all. He pleaded, not because he was brave, but because he had to. Because to betray a guest was worse than death. And then light, not fire, not yet, but something powerful. The strangers revealed themselves not as men, but as messengers. Messengers from beyond. They told Lot the city's time was ending. Its weight, its cruelty, its rot. It could no longer stand. Judgment was coming. And now, in this moment, on this quiet morning, Lot must go. Imagine him now, sitting in the doorway, looking out across the stones of the city he has lived in for years, the place where he made a life, buried friends, raised children, learned to be silent and careful. How do you leave a place like that? Not just physically, but emotionally? His daughters do not question him. They, too, have seen what the city has become. His wife, she packs slowly. Her face is unreadable. There are no suitcases, no wagons, just small bundles, cloth, grain, a little water. The strangers, angels, perhaps, stand nearby. They don't hurry, but their presence is heavy, like the calm before a storm. And still Lot hesitates. He looks back toward the city walls, not because he loves the place, but because he cannot yet unlove it. The human mind clings to what it knows, even if what it knows is crumbling. The sun lifts again, then seems to pause, as if waiting. And now it is time. The strangers give no speech. No shouting, no fire yet, just a gentle but final word. Go. And they go. Lot, his wife, his daughters, moving not with haste, but with resignation, as if every step is a quiet surrender. They do not take the main road. They take the paths goats use, narrow, winding tracks that snake through dry hills. The wind picks up, not loud, but constant. It carries with it the scent of ash, though no fire has been seen. Below them, the city remains silent. Somewhere behind, people go on with their day, selling, buying, whispering, not knowing the end is already walking away from them. You might wonder what Lot is thinking. Regret? Relief? Or nothing at all, just the steady rhythm of feet on stone, one after another, toward the unknown. There's a stillness now, a sacred quiet, the kind that often comes before change. And behind them, unseen, unheard, Sodom begins to break. But Lot does not look back, not yet. Let's pause here. We've followed the stranger through the tight alleys of suspicion. We've followed Lot through the silence of departure. Now we turn from story to stone, because beneath the hills and ash archaeologists have been digging, and what they've found is quiet too. Let's take a moment to breathe, and when you're ready, we'll explore the ash-laden past beneath the ground near the Dead Sea. The winds around the Dead Sea blow with a peculiar stillness. It's a contradiction, perhaps, but so much in this place is the landscape itself seems frozen in a kind of suspended breath. Mountains rise in jagged folds like petrified waves, and below them the salt-laden waters shimmer under a sun that feels somehow ancient. It is here, in the shifting silt and salt, that the earth may hold answers. Not fiery ones, not thunderous, just layers of time pressed gently into stone. Archaeologists have long been fascinated by the region, not only because of its biblical associations, though, of course, that is part of the draw, but because the land remembers, and the land forgets nothing. As we walk slowly across the shores near the southern basin of the Dead Sea, we find nothing dramatic, no broken tablets, no flaming ruins, just the quiet whisper of wind brushing over stone and the occasional glint of a shard, pottery, perhaps, peeking from the dust. Let us go now to Bab Edra, a site nestled at the edge of a desert plateau, just southeast of the Dead Sea. Archaeologists believe this may be one of the ancient cities of the plain. Long buried beneath rubble and sand, there is no signpost that says "Welcome to Sodom," no pillar of salt labeled Lot's wife. Instead, there are walls, collapsed, crumbled, and beneath them, bones. The graves here number in the thousands. Charcoal layers suggest fire, not from a single blaze, but wave after wave. Some believe the site was destroyed by earthquake and combustion. Others suspect a sudden collapse of the ground itself, releasing volatile gases from beneath. Even today, the region is known for its bitumen pits, thick, tar-like substances seeping from the earth. In ancient times, these were valuable for waterproofing boats, for construction, and even for trade. But they were also dangerous. Combined heat, flammable gases, and a tectonically active fault line. And you begin to see how the earth itself could have undone a city, no divine fire required. Still, it is curious, isn't it, that such destruction occurred in a place tied so intimately to the story of judgment. Other sites nearby, Numeira, Isafi, Fifa, also show signs of abrupt endings. Walled settlements suddenly abandoned. Storage jars left shattered, as if the people who once ate from them simply vanished. There is no smoking crater, no divine footprint, just layers of dust, ash, and silence. You might crouch beside one of the dig pits now. The sun presses against your back. A brush gently sweeps over ancient stone, and what do you see? A floor, a doorway, the outline of a hearth. This was a home. Someone cooked here. Someone once argued here, laughed here, perhaps wept. Not sinners, not saints, just people, asleep under history's long, slow blanket. The researchers at these sites are careful with their words. They do not claim to have found Sodom, but they acknowledge something happened, something sudden, something final. The layer of ash is thick in places, so thick it silences even the wind. And then there is the salt. The Dead Sea is so saturated that salt forms along its edges like frost. The air itself feels heavier here, and if you inhale deeply, you can taste it, metallic, mineral, ancient. Stories abound about Lot's wife turning into a pillar of salt. There are many such pillars near the southern shore, tall, wind-carved formations standing in solemn silence. One of them, nicknamed Lot's wife, rises alone from the slope of Mount Sodom, a mountain not of rock, but of pure salt, pressed and fused over millennia. Of course, it is not her, but the story lingers, as stories do, because while stone may remember and bones may whisper, it is the story that survives. Perhaps what matters most is not whether the fire came from heaven or the ground, but that a city fell and the world kept turning. Let's step back now from the edge of excavation. Let the soil settle, because not far from here, someone was watching. Someone who had spoken with messengers, argued with divinity, and still made bread for strangers. A man with tents and goats and questions for the sky. His name was Abraham. Let's walk now out of the ruins and into the campfires of the quiet plains. Now we leave behind the fallen stones and the bitter winds of Sodom's final days. We turn away from the ash and walk slowly, gently into another kind of silence. Not the silence of judgment, but the silence of open land. We're in the hill country now, somewhere between the oak groves of Mamre and the edges of the desert. Here the air is different, sweeter, carried with the scent of wild herbs and dry grass. You might hear the soft bleating of goats or the muted clink of bronze as someone prepares a pot. A different life entirely, one not carved into walls of stone, but stitched together by tents and woven mats and the quiet rhythm of movement. This is Abraham's world. Not a city dweller, not a king. A patriarch, yes, but also just a man. A man who listens. A man who wanders. He lives here among the low hills, under the vast sky, with his wife Sarah and a modest household. His camp is spread out, a few tents in a semicircle, a fire pit, a small enclosure for animals. You won't find marble here or gates or courtyards, but you will find something else, a kind of stillness, a waiting. Abraham's life is built on trust, not in people, but in something larger, something harder to explain. A voice he once heard. His day begins early. He walks between the tents, checking the ropes, listening to the workers as they prepare for the chores ahead. And then, one day, 3 strangers arrive. They do not look divine. They come walking across the plain quietly, like any other travelers might. But Abraham rises. He runs to greet them. Something stirs in him, an urgency, but not panic. He bows low. He offers water. He asks them to stay. Hospitality here is not a luxury. It is a law older than law. To share bread is to share protection. Abraham instructs Sarah to prepare cakes from the finest flour. A servant is set to select a calf, tender and good. They work in a rhythm honed by years of survival, of offering comfort in a world that often gives none. The strangers sit beneath a tree. The food is laid before them, and they eat. But these are not ordinary men. As they speak, they reveal something, a truth that glows like coal beneath ash. They say Sarah will have a child, a son. At her age, it's laughable. And indeed, she laughs, quietly behind the tent flaps. Not mocking, just tired. Because hope, too, can wear thin. But the stranger hears her laughter, and gently, without accusation, he asks, "Why did Sarah laugh?" Then, softly, "Is anything too wondrous?" There is no answer, just the wind through the grass. Soon they rise. Their visit was not only about Sarah. They have another purpose. Their faces grow more solemn. They look toward the valley, toward Sodom, and Abraham follows. Then something remarkable happens. The strangers speak not to Abraham, but with him, as if he matters, as if the fate of a city could be discussed. They speak of justice, of Sodom, and Abraham, dusty, old, childless, wandering, begins to negotiate. Not arrogantly, but humbly. If there are 50 righteous in the city, will you still destroy it? He bargains, not for himself, but for others, for those he does not know. He whittles the number down: 50, 45, 30, 20, 10. And at each number the stranger agrees. If 10 are found, it will be spared. But 10 will not be found. Still, the conversation mattered. A man, a tent, some bread, and the presence of something far beyond comprehension. When Abraham returns to his camp, nothing appears to have changed. The goats are still grazing. The fire has burned low. Sarah folds cloth as she always has, but something has shifted. Hope has taken root again, and far off on the edge of the sky, clouds are gathering. So now we come to the end. The stranger in the alleys of Sodom, the family who walked away, the city buried beneath the dust, and the quiet tent where heaven sat down to eat. Each moment is a thread in a larger tapestry, not of fire, but of choices, of hospitality and suspicion, of departure and looking back, and of listening to strangers, to silence, to something larger than ourselves. Let's take a final breath now. Let the fires fade. Let the wind pass over the plains, and as the dust settles and the salt glitters along the shoreline, you can rest knowing that even the most fearful cities fade into stillness,